What is going on, guys? In today's video I will show you the top 3 best monk builds in Power of Exile 2. In this guide I will give you a quick overview of the best setups for both ascendancies, so Invoker and the Acolyte of Chayula. Then I will explain what skill gems and upgrades should you focus on. Then as well we'll see what is the best gear and how to get it for both the mid game and end game. And finally, we will go over the passive tree, attributes, your skill rotations, and even what Atlas passive should you use, so we would be able to get the highest damage possible and much more. If you're looking for any of these builds on the website, then click my link in this video description or the pinned comment. This setup's main focus is to lock down your enemies with quick freezes that last a long time. Even bosses are vulnerable to being frozen, and we can just lay down insane amount of DPS while they're stuck doing no damage. Your main gameplay loop will revolve around using the Ice Strike to close the gap between the enemies. Then drop the Tempest Belt to help you do more damage, and then activate your Charged Staff, Ice Strike and the Shattering Palm. If you're looking for the most powerful monk build that freezes and builds upon insane attack speed and cold damage, then this is the one for you. So let me show you the build, and for the main class I have chosen to go with the monk, and our ascendancy is the Invoker. Then for the first skill we have the Ice Strike with support gems such as the Cold Infusion, Martial Tempo, Crescendo, Primal, Armament and Inspiration. Then second we got the Shattering Palm with Execute, Blind and the Ice Bite. Then next we got the Herald of the Ice with Magnified Effect, Cold Mastery and Elemental Focus. Next we have the Ghost Dance with the Fast Forward and Clarity. Next up we have the Charged Staff with the Perpetual Charge, Persistence and Maim. Then for one of the last ones we got the Unbound Avatar with Fire Mastery and the Lightning Mastery. Then next we have the Charge Infusion with no support gems. Next up we got the Tempest Belt with Rage, Heavy Swing, Glacianation and Overabundance. Then for one of the last ones we have the Wind Dancer with Culling Strike, Cannibalism and Vitality. And finally for the last one we are using the Combat Frenzy with Profusion and Precision. Most of this setup is structured around using the Ice Strike and the Tempest Belt to delete enemies in split seconds. So we use gems and skills that will support and increase their speed and damage, while the rest are powerful buffs and utility skills that usually get activated in the background. Next up we have our passive tree, and if you're interested in a full in-depth guide on how it works, then check out my beginner guide. So let's take a look at our setup, and we want to start at the skill speed node. Then go like this until we get these three, so Flow like Water, Mindful Awareness and the Step like Mist. Then next we keep continuing going like this, and take all of these, so the Flow State, Crashing Wave, then also Moment of Truth and finally the Conservative Casting. Next we move forwards until we are here, and then we take the Killer Instinct and the Tenfold Attacks. Then next we now take the left side and keep going until this half circle, while on our way taking all of these blue nodes, as well as the Resonance Keystone, and then stopping at this Deep Trance node. Then now we want to circle back a little, and keep going up top until we get to this Spectral Ward. Then afterwards we go till the end, and now take the right side, and then get all of these nodes that you can see right here. And then finally from this point and onwards you can unlock the rest of the nodes in whatever order you prefer. And then now let's go all the way to the middle again, and for Ascendancy build this is what we have. So at the beginning you want to unlock the Lead Me Through the Grace, then second get and Protect Me from Harm, then third we want to get I Am the Blizzard, and then finally for the last one we want an I Shall Rage. Next up we have our Atlas passives, and the general idea behind this is to aim for bonus passives that will spawn a lot of grouped up monsters, such as in expeditions or in rituals. Our Ice Strike monk build is also great at single target DPS, so we can also spend a bit points into farming boss maps or the essences. Our monk build is also great at single target DPS, so we can also spend a bit points into farming boss maps or the essences. So when we start we want to first of all get to this bottom right side like this, then from here we can go until we get all the way to this point. Then next we get back to the middle and this time take the bottom left side, and get all of these passives until this circle. And then when all of these are done, then we go again to the middle, and this time take the middle part, and unlock the rest of the nodes in whatever order you prefer. Next we have our gear. The weapon of our choice is the Expert Slicing Quarterstaff with the bonus stats like the increased physical damage, adds more to physical damage, more accuracy, increased crit chance and attack speed. Then for the helmet we have the Expert Veiled Mask with evasion and energy shield. And for extras we want more increased evasion and energy shield. Then also max life and mana. And finally any type of resistance like fire or cold. Then for chest we have the Expert Scalper's Jacket with Evasion and Energy Shield. And for more we want Evasion rating, Max Energy Shield, Reduced Attribute Requirements and Chaos Resistance. Then for the belt we have the Utility Belt with 20% quicker flask recovery. And for bonus stats we want Max Life, Cold and Lightning Resistance. Then for the gloves we got the Advanced Spiral Warp with Max Life, Evasion and Energy Shield, increased attack speed and fire and cold resistance. Then for boots we're using the Expert Frayed Shoes with Evasion and Energy Shield. And for more we for sure want the increased movement speed, then also max life and mana, and if possible then lightning resistance. Then for our first and second ring we got the same one, so we are going with the Amethyst ring, as its base stat gives chaos resistance. And as chaos resistance is not that easy to get, so this is the best place to get free resistance. And then for more we want accuracy, more dexterity and more intelligence. And then finally for amulet we got the Azure Amulet with increased mana regen. And for more we need accuracy, plus more levels to all spell skills and cold or lightning resistance. No matter which gear you choose, just at least try to get 75% resistance cap on all 4 elements. This is a starter setup, which should be more of an example of what stats and prefixes to look for. And now finally, let's quickly take a look at how this build will work, and I will show you 2 rotations. So first up we have a very basic rotation, which is meant to clear big monster groups and just weak enemies. So all that we want to do is use the Shattering Palm and then follow that up with the Ice Strikes. The Shattering Palm in this case will act as the first engage mobility tool and to increase our crit rate, so then we can simply spam the Ice Strikes and obliterate enemies in few seconds. Or then the second rotation we mainly use against single targets and bosses. So this time we want to start with using the Ice Strike 4 times. Then next we use the Tempest Belt. Then afterwards 4 more Ice Strikes. Then Charge Staff. Then again 1 more Tempest Belt. And now finally you can keep spamming the Ice Strikes as much as possible. The main idea behind this is to use the Tempest Belt as a buffing tool, because it gives us a lot of damage and some extra attack range buff, so then we can use our Ice Strikes and the Charge Staff as our main DPS skills, and then just rinse and repeat. This build is extremely powerful, so no matter what you do, if you build it right, then you will be doing crazy amount of damage numbers. But if you wanted to know the most optimized skill rotation, then here they are. This setup is known as the Lightning Storm Monk build, which uses the Acolyte of Chayula Ascendancy to allow you to embrace the darkness by sacrificing spirits. This build will offer a unique playstyle focused on storm damage and the manipulation of the darkness powers. With the strong defensive capabilities of Embrace the Darkness, as well as the Life and Energy Shield Leech, the Acolyte of Chayula will offer a great set of tools for survival, but where the huge drawback usually was in his lack of damage. So I did a lot of hours of testing and now we finally have a build that can easily compete and even outperform the Invoker Monk builds. So if you're ready for this simple enough build that only requires for you to spam 2-3 buttons and then obliterate anyone and everyone that stands in your way, then this is the one for you. So let me show you the build, and for the main class I have chosen to go with the Monk, and our Ascendancy is the Acolyte of Chayula. Then for the first skill we have the Gathering Storm with the support gems such as the Overcharge, Lightning Exposure and the Coursing Torrent. Then second we got the Siphoning Strike with the Profusion and the Culling Strike. Then next we got the Charge Staff with the Perpetual Charge, Persistence, Withering Touch and the Overpower. Next we have the Tempest Belt with Magnified Effect, Rage and Overabundance. Next we are also using the Tempest Fury with the Close Combat, Crescendo and the Martial Tempo. Next we have the Storm Wave with the Conduction, Lightning Infusion and Primal Armament. Then we got the Ghost Dance with the Fast Forward and Precision. Next we have the Wind Dancer with the Maim and the Blind. And finally for the last one we got the Herald of the Thunder with the Innervate and the Shock Siphon. Next up we have our passive tree, and if you're interested in a full in-depth guide on how it works, then check out my beginner guides. So let's take a look at our setup, and we want to start at the skill speed node and make our way like this until we get the flow like the water and the essence of the storm. Next up we continue making our way like this and get the crashing wave and the momentum truth. Then next we want to keep going up until this point and then now take the right until we unlock both these nodes. So the exposed to the storm and the wild storm. Then from here we want to get more crit chance, and we mainly can do it in 2 places. So first we circle back a little and get these 2 nodes, and then from here again let's go to the top right corner and we want to unlock all of these blue nodes. And then finally from this point and onwards you can unlock the rest of the nodes in whatever order you prefer. All of the nodes that we got are important, but the ones I mentioned have the top priority, as they're the most important ones to acquire early on in the game to make our build functional, and in the late game to make it even more powerful. And then now let's go all the way to the middle again, and for our Ascendancy build, this is what we have. So at the beginning you want to unlock the Walking Dream, then next get the Lucid Dream. Then from here for the third option we get the Reality Rending, and then finally for the last fourth option we want to go with the Chayula's Gift. Some players also prefer to go with the more mana leech instead of the resistance, but that's why in the main tree we spend few points on the mana, so then we could easily utilize our Ascendancy to the max and get the Chayula's Gift. Next up we have our Atlas passives. And the general idea behind this is to aim for bonus passives that will spawn a lot of grouped up monsters, such as the expeditions or the rituals. Also, our Lightning Monk has a very strong single target damage, so farming boss maps or essences is also a good option. So when we start, we want to first of all get this bottom left side like this, then now we go to the top right side and get all of these passives. And then finally from here you want to go to this top middle part and get the rest of the passives in no particular order. Then next we have our gear. The weapon of our choice is the Expert Slicing Quarterstaff. This is the most important item and you want to acquire a high physical or lightning damage. Overall most players can choose between 3 options, so go either way with the Expert Crescent, as it is the highest performing one due to the charged staff giving a ton of flat lightning damage. Then next you can also go with the Slicing Quarterstaff, which I've chosen for myself, as it is one of the easier items to get and has the highest DPS per hit. Or then lastly we can as well get the Gothic Quarterstaff, which has the highest crit rate. All of these options have positives and negatives, so choose whichever one you get first or the specific bonus that you need. And then for more bonuses we want increased physical damage, more accuracy, increased attack speed and or increased critical hit chance. Then for the helmet we have the Expert Feather Tiara with the Energy Shield. And for more stats we want max life, evasion and chaos resistance. Then for the chest we have the Expert Studded Vest with a lot of evasion. And for bonuses we want even more evasion, max life and cold resistance. Then for belt we have our utility belt that recovers our flask 20% quicker. And for bonus stats we want more max life, 1 charm slot and the fire resistance. Then for gloves we got the Expert Gauze Wraps with the evasion and energy shield. And for extras we want max life, max mana and fire resistance. And by the way, if you ever run into the mana problem, then just equip few more mana regen stats, or just cast few less charged staffs until you recover. But our specific build should not be struggling if you use decent enough gear. Then for boots we are using the Expert Frayed Shoes with evasion and energy shield. And for more we need increased movement speed, more evasion and max life. Then for our first ring we got the Ruby Ring with fire resistance, and for more we want max life and cold resistance. While on the second one we got the Sapphire Ring with cold resistance, and for the extras we want to get lightning resistance and more critical hit chance. And then finally for the amulet we got the Bloodstone Amulet with max life, even more critical hit chance and more percentage to all elemental resistances. And now finally let's quickly take a look at how this build will work. So pretty much all monks have proven that by using the charged staff it will give you an insane damage buff that is worth investing into by keeping a high uptime. It's also important to make sure that you're using the Gathering Storm on mob bosses and the pinnacles to apply a shock through its shocked ground and exposure through the lightning exposure. And finally, the last important skill is the Tempest Belt, as he can do his own damage each time it gets hit. And this is the majority of our single target DPS. So the general gameplay of this build is pretty straightforward. And no matter which rotation you're doing, always have the charged staff active pretty much 24/7. And for weak enemies like we have right here, you can simply spam 2 buttons. So the Siphoning Strike for mobility and the Storm Wave for clearing the mob packs. And then second, for single targets we can also use the Tempest Fury with the Tempest Belt, while also using the Gathering Storm to massively debuff the boss. This setup is very unique because we are going to be utilizing the Tempest Fury for the huge speed and distance buffs, so then we could proc the cast when shocked and summon hundreds of lightning balls to shock the enemies around. It also utilizes the cast on critical to occasionally spawn the Orb of Storm to increase our CC and DPS potential even more. If you're looking for a fun monk starter build with leveling and mid-game setups, then here they are. So let's move over to the build. For our main class we have the monk, and our ascendancy is the invoker. Because of our weapon, our basic skill is the Quarterstaff Strike. Then second, we got the Tempest Fury with support gems such as Conduction, Martial Tempo, Crescendo, Soul Thief and Life Thief. Then next we got Cast on Shock with support gems like the Ball Lightning, Lightning Mastery, Wild Shards, Impetus and Scatter Shot. Next we have Cast on Critical with the Orb of Storms, Overabundance, Magnified Effect, Spell Echo and Lightning Exposure. Next we have Ghost Dance with support gems such as Clarity, Vitality and Precision. Then for the next two we got the Tempest Bell and Vaulting Impact, and for them we don't want to use any gems. Next we have the Killing Palm and we only get the Behead gem. Then next we have the Enfeeble and we use the Heightened Curse. And finally for our last one we got the Temporal Chains with no support gems. Overall you want to add the Ghost Dance only after you get enough spirits from the Lead Me through the Ascendancy node. Most of this build is structured around using the Tempest Fury and Cast on Critical, so we use gems and skills that will support and increase their damage, while the rest are powerful filler skills that we can use until our main rotation comes back up. Next, let's quickly take a look at our leveling setup, which we can use up until about level 25. So first off we have the Tempest Fury with the Martial Tempo and Crescendo. Then next we have the Storm Wave with the Concentrated Effect. And then finally we have our Orb of Storms with Overabundance and Controlled Destruction. This is your basic setup up until you get more spirits and points to spend. So for leveling, just keep using the Tempest Fury with the Storm Wave and the Orb of Storms for big single and AoE damage. Also, once you get a good quarterstaff that has some combination of flat physical damage, increased physical damage and or flat lightning damage, then you should probably start going into the mid-game build. And on top of all of this, don't forget to use the Tempest Bell skill, as it plays a huge role, so spam it whenever you can. Next up we have our passive skill tree. For most new players, this can seem extremely daunting, but actually it's quite simple. In very simple terms, every character is granted one passive skill point every time they level up, and sometimes are even granted more for completing certain quests. In general we have 3 node types, so small nodes, notable nodes and keystones. All of them act as checkpoints that you want to reach, and make a path to build around a specific playstyle. So let's take a look at our setup, and we want to start at the Evasion and Energy Shield, and go to the right side like this. Then now come back here and get both these nodes, so the Essence of the Storm and the Crashing Wave. Then next we continue the path like this, get the Momentum of the Truth on our way, and continue making our way up until the top and taking all of these nodes in our way as well. Then next up we take the right side and get all of these 3 nodes. And then finally from here, we make our way all the way to the left side and get these nodes in whatever order you prefer. And then last but not least, we come back all the way to the middle and here's our Ascendancy points. And this is how it should look like. So first we want to get the Sunder My Enemies, then the Soul Spring Eternal, then Lead to Me Through the Grace, and finally Protect Me from Harm. To simplify my decision making in the main tree, then basically we wanted to prioritize the 10-fold attacks and Killer Instinct nodes, as this will give us the biggest build upgrade, so we wanted to get them first. On top of this, the small attack nodes, so the 10% ones, are good as well in early game, so we get them as well. In general, in POE 2, earning skill points take a lot of hard work, so it will be wise not to spend your points recklessly. You can refund your passive points later, but only at a cost, so following a specific setup is extremely useful. If you are following my setup, then make sure to not deviate from it, as some of my decisions that I make might not make sense at first, but is going to pay off later. So please use the exact same path as I have right here. And don't forget that you can check this video's description to find a link for this website, and this should help you to make it easier for you to follow the path. Then next we have our gear. The weapon of our choice is the Advanced Crackling Quarterstaff with critical, speed and of course the min and max damage. This is not required, but in the best case scenario we could get at least one prefix with the lightning damage. Then for the helmet we have the Advanced Brim Helm with armor and evasion, and if possible then get maximum life prefix. Then for the chest we have the Advanced Anchorite Garb with evasion and energy shield, and if possible then get more evasion or maximum life. Then for belt we have the Fine Belt with maximum mana. Then for gloves we got the Adorned Gloves with energy shield, and if possible then also get maximum life. Then for boots we are using the Advanced Frayed Shoes with evasion and energy shield, and if you can then get maximum mana increase. Then for our first ring we got the Ruby Ring with the fire resistance and or maximum life, while on the second one we got the Sapphire Ring with Cold Resistance and Evasion rating. And then finally for the amulet we got the Azure Amulet with increased mana regen and evasion. As the game just launched, so this is a starter setup, which should be more of an example of what stats and prefixes to look for. Your weapon will be the most important upgrade, so prioritize flat damage of any type. Specifically, the lightning damage roll will be the most important one, as your skills themselves can do a lot of conversion as well. And then for defenses, make sure that you're regularly updating the base type of your gear, so look for increased mana, life and any type of resistances, to try to get them at least to 75% cap. Some evasion is also important to roll, especially on the body armor. And now finally, let's quickly take a look at how this build will work. So for bossing or large rare enemies, we want to start this rotation by engaging with the Vaulting Impact, and then hit enemies with the Tempest Fury. This combo will utilize a huge attack distance and fill our screen with the lightning bolts that do big damage. And then from here, if the enemies are not dead, then we can follow it up with the Enfeeble and then the Tempest Bell. As I mentioned previously, our Tempest Bell will play a huge role on our DPS, so spam it as much as possible. And then as far as all the other skills go, they are just filler spells, so just use them until you get the main rotation back up.